Do you want to bust your sales quota? Do you want to join the ranks of top 1% sellers? The Top 1% Sellers podcast gives you the insights and the tools to help you achieve your sales greatness. The podcast features sales and services professionals, leaders, and experts to give you the edge you're looking for. Here's your host, Ash Sadiq.
Absolutely, because it immediately made me think about, again, when I think of Cisco, when I think of the partner organizations that work with Cisco, as a sales account manager going to a customer, if he only or she only thinks of Cisco, that's not re-envisioning the pond, because typically the solution is going to involve several other pieces. And I think that way you serve the customer better, and then you also bring a lot of other players with the solution.
Yeah, great example. Use Cisco as a good example. I'm going to do it. So John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, is a good friend as well. And by the way, his father was a doctor in West Virginia. I was born in West Virginia. His father was the doctor that brought me into this world.
Oh my goodness!
And which we didn't know until like 40 years later. And he said, my dad was a doctor. Just as a side note, and we were at a major conference somewhere, and he goes, my dad was a doctor in West Virginia. I go, well, I was, because we're both from the same state. Yeah. And anyway, lo and behold, his father was the first person ever to touch my ass. Okay, I just want to point that out. But I will tell you, Michael Dell from Dell Computer one day, Cisco bought a company called Flip, which was a video camera, a small video camera company. They bought for like $500 to $800 million, and Michael and I were Facebook friends. And so Michael wrote to me on Facebook and said, why did they buy Flip? Yes. He wanted to know, what he missed. So I got a private message from Michael Dell. This was many years ago.
Yes.
And he writes, and I got to thinking about, well, it wasn't finance. So here's why they were buying Flip. If you think of it, they're buying, why are they getting the consumer electronics thing? No. Yes. What does Cisco make? Cisco primarily makes routers.
Yes.
Okay? And you buy a router, you typically keep that router until it frickin' dies. And probably you're going to die before the router will die.
Correct.
So the only way you can get someone to upgrade the router is to push more data through the router so that the router becomes the constriction point, and you need a bigger router. Absolutely. Right? Exactly. All right. So what are video files? Huge amounts of data.
Yes.
So they were trying to push more and more data so that companies would want to do this video stuff, video conferencing, if you remember. They would want to do all, personal video devices that you're using at work, capture more of this that you see. And therefore, they were creating a business development arm and a way in which to increase more demand for the routers. Absolutely. That's what I said to Michael. I said, this is the only thing I can see is that way. But if I looked at it just as a consumer play, I would have said that was the stupidest buy that Cisco ever made. And I don't think it was the smartest buy still today, because the Flip became a flop. But anyway, but again, you have to look at it beyond what is just right there.
Absolutely.
So that's the pond. Again, that's the analogy. Is it really just a pond? Is it really just a foam?
It's a much more strategic move than just a simple purchase. No, that's fantastic. Let's definitely then kind of shift over to you interact with the C-suite. You were in the Fortune 100 yourself, and you, based on your C-suite TV program and conferences, you're interfacing with executives all the time. And I think sellers are always interested to learn what makes a CXO tick. And you talked about the personality types. I want us to maybe delve deeper into how do executives like to make decisions? Are they typically making the decision in that room where they are, or are they typically depending on a much larger team to help them make the decision?
Especially great question. Yeah. There are some executives who, it is interesting. I did an interview with Inc. magazine this morning with someone about something along the same lines. Yes. So typically, there are some execs who just make decisions. Boom, we're going to go do it. Okay, that's a very small percentage. I mean, if we're looking on the chart, they're way over here. They're right, that little tiny bubble way up here. Most executives are down in this bubble, and what you got to do is really find the ones in the sweet spots, right? And so what happens with most executives, they can't or aren't empowered fully to make decisions. So that's one. So they have to bring in other people. So you need to find out who are the influencers and who are the other decision makers that are part of that. But one of the other things for most executives is they can only push so much without getting the rest of the team to buy in. So they're going to go and look for others to help them. Yes. And so you want to help them educate the other ones on what to make a great decision is and why that's a great decision. Yes. And they don't want to rock the boat as much. So they're going to go for safer decisions. That's why, no CMO ever lost his job by buying television.
Yes.
Okay? It was a safe bet. No CEO ever lost his or her job by buying IBM, right? Yeah. Because it was a safe bet. So what you want to be able to do is show them how this is a safe and good bet and yet gets what they want to have accomplished. And so to do that, you've got to present it in a way that it's in their speak, their language, and so forth. So everybody just looks around and pretty says, well, why aren't we doing this?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But if you don't have that buy-in from their teams, you understand they'll sabotage them. They'll put knives in their back. It's not, I know it is human nature, but it's also corporate nature where you have different groups fighting and different groups, saying, well, that's my area, not your area. And you get some of that crap going on, which is not good, but that's just the nature of the way it works. So the less that you have of that, the better it is.
Absolutely, because you want to make sure it gets implemented and adopted in the business versus it is on the shelf and they don't do anything with it,
Yep. So you want it to be a bit of a stretch in terms of where it needs to go, but still safe enough to where nobody has a problem with it.
Yeah, that's terrific, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to one of the points you make in the book about being a little pig-headed, don't settle, be irrational. And I want to talk to our sales professionals on what that means in your mind.
Yeah, so a lot of people say, well, I'm pig-headed. Well, that's a bad thing. No, it's a great thing. It means that I'm going to stand for something, and you're going to stand for something, and that means the best, right? I had an executive who got up in one of my television shows, and I'm there filming him, and this is the CEO of Life Technologies, which is a $4 billion company sold to Thermo Fisher for about $13 billion. Yes. And this was Greg Lucier. Greg was a former executive inside of GE Healthcare as well. Just a great guy. I mean, everything this guy has ever touched turns to not gold, but platinum. He's really done a good job. And so he was speaking to a Harvard group of alumni, Harvard MBA alumni in San Diego. So I went there and filmed him. It's part of what we call B-roll, where I'm sitting there listening, and they're getting shots of me, shots of him, that we can overload with my voiceover. Yes. And so he got up and he said, he was talking about what MBAs and what leaders need to do. And he says, leaders need to be irrational. I went, what? He's got to be nuts. You can't be irrational. He's a publicly traded company and a scientific company. It's got to be exact, and he's telling them to sit here and be irrational. Oh my gosh, there's no way. Right? And I circled it. I thought, I'm going to drill him. And then he said, here's what happens. He says, here's where our company is on the chart. And we want to go here. But what I do is I tell them, we got to go over here, way up here. Yes. And everybody thinks I'm freaking nuts or crazy, or you think I'm nuts and crazy because I'm saying we got to go here. Well, the reason is I got to do that in order to drag everybody to get them to here.
Closer to where you want to go.
Yeah. And so it's like, me telling my team when they say, oh, it's cold in the office, I'll say, hey, work harder, So, you work harder. If you work more, you'll warm up. It's that kind of, again, the cadence, the strategy about saying that. But how many times have you in your sales history, you shipped something you shouldn't have shipped? You did something that the team did, and you go, oh, I hope they don't see that.
Yeah.
And so being pig-headed is saying, no, stop.
Yes.
We said we were going to deliver this. This is what we're delivering. And we're going to deliver it in this quality, in this format, this price, this quality, with this speed, whatever it is. Exactly. And you have to say, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. I've been in rooms where we're about to ship something, and one of the employees says, this is bad. This isn't good. And sometimes I'd almost say, we'll just ship it anyway.
Yeah.
And then I would say, no, you have to live in the values. And if your values say this is what it is, then I had to be pig-headed and say, stop it. Stop.
Yes.
We're going to fail. We're going to fail if we send it, and we're going to fail if we don't send it. But I'd rather fail and not send it and be right and earn the trust of the customer. So again, that's what I'm talking about, being pig-headed. And it's important for you to be very pig-headed, not settling.
Thank you. I definitely agree with you on that. And when I was, reading the piece about steamrolling objections and steamrolling any obstacles in the way, just by watching and listening to you, I'm figuring you're doing this on a daily basis yourself, just by
every day.
Your force of character, right?
Yep.
If you can talk to the attributes then that maybe are in Jeffrey and then they should be in others, especially if they are sales professionals, what's sort of driving that ability to just keep going no matter what?
Well, winning. I mean, and doing what I want to do. So if my conditions of satisfaction are build wealth, right, and for my family, and to learn new things and have fun, well, those are the things that drive me. So let's say I'm selling to you and you say no. Okay. Well, eventually you're going to, so I'm going to keep coming back, So I'm going to win. I'm going to win you over one way or the other, So that's my philosophy is, just a matter of that. It's like in my first book, The Mirror Test, I talked about one time someone caught me in the middle of a phone conversation and the person said no. And I said, hey, well, listen, I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. I'd like to check back in with you at some later time. And I hung up and I went, yeah. And they went, Jeff, what are you talking about? You just got to know. Someone just told you no, and they're not going to buy from you. I said, yeah, I know. Wasn't that wonderful? And they go, what are you talking about? I said, well, it takes 10 no's to get a yes. And that was my 10th one. My next call is going to be a yes. On average, I knew that to be the case. And so that's about that relentlessness of being able to drive it. I mean, a great example is my son. My son works for me, and he handles the brand of me. So he handles the TV, the radio, the books, and all the stuff that's around us because it's our name. And I want to make sure I got, somebody that's got that same name who's, watching out, kind of like Trump does with his family too.
Yes, exactly.
And so, and my son does that. And years ago, he was one of the top salespeople in Northwestern Mutual. He went through their internship program, and which is a great, great program, by the way. If anyone that's ever wants to learn how to really sell and do something, Northwestern Mutual has a great program for it. Yes. And he was one of the top 10 in the country.
That's awesome.
And I said, how is it you make more phone calls than anybody else? He goes, Dad, I don't hang up the phone. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, everybody else in the office, when they're done with the phone, they hang it up. I never hang it. I never hang it up. I just click, or I wear a headset. I just click. Exactly. I never hang up the phone. And I went, wow, that's saying I'm going to be relentless in what I do and how I do it, and I'm going to overcome obstacles so I can be faster with it. I thought that was great.
That's wonderful, Jeffrey. This has been fantastic conversation. I want to go more, but I want to be very conscious of your time. And
thanks.
So thank you so much for joining me. I'd like to take just a few minutes here and show the audience a few more of our slides. Just to remind them that this is actually Jeffrey's participating with us in an amazing lineup of experts that are coming in to participate in the Top 1% Sellers Academy. In the next few months, we'll have Ty Bennett, Louis Sheff, Peter Myers, and I know that just yesterday, actually, Jim Cathcart has also agreed to join us in this series, and also Mike Weinberg, fantastic bestsellers and experts in the sales profession, and definitely Jeffrey is one of the trailblazers here in that lineup, and I thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Well, you got some great talent there. I know many of the people that you've just mentioned. Jim Cathcart, certainly, he's a fellow speaker, Hall of Fame as well with myself. He and I, and oh gosh, who else? Art Linkletter, Norman Vincent Peale, Zig Ziglar, Ronald Reagan. That to just name a few of those. Some great dignitaries that Jim and I happen to share. One, we've shared the stage with many of those people, and then two, just to be a part of the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, that's just amazing. I'm very honored to have you and have these people. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And I definitely want to encourage everybody watching us and people who are going to be watching the replays. to visit thinkbigtour.com and learn more about Jeffrey's Think Big, Act Bigger book and a lot of other activities that are happening around it. And also the c-suitenetwork.com, amazing number of episodes of conversations with C-suite executives. Jeffrey's an amazing interviewer. I've seen some of these episodes, and the talent that he brings and the interactions and the conversations that he has, very, very educational, especially for sales professionals, to really understand what that audience thinks about, cares about, and has top of mind. So definitely you want to check these two websites out, and then definitely stay tuned for the messages you'll be receiving from us, the webinars that are coming up in this series, and some valuable content that you see us offering as well through the communication that we'll be sending you. And then eventually a lot of this content will be on the Top 1% Sellers Academy membership website, which will have a whole lot more in terms of access to coaches, listening to Jeffrey and other people in these webinars, and then also some Hall of Fame sellers that we are interviewing as well. Jeffrey, thank you so much for your time. This has been an amazing pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me be a part of it and coming out and thinking big today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have a great afternoon.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Top 1% Sellers podcast. Give us your suggestions and guest recommendations by emailing us at ash@connectwithash.com. Thank you also for sharing this podcast with your colleagues and social media contacts. To connect with us on LinkedIn, please send a connect request to ash@connectwithash.com. See you at our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.